Welcome to this episode of The LinkedIn Marketer. My name is Karen Hollenbach, and today I'm going to explore with you the benefits of content marketing rituals on LinkedIn, with the general idea that this is going to save you some time and headspace as you're approaching your content marketing plan each cycle. When I talk about this idea of the content marketing cycle, it's going to vary depending on whether you run your own small business and you're responsible for your own LinkedIn marketing, or perhaps you have a team dedicated to this, or you outsource your LinkedIn content marketing and you approve a schedule every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8 weeks. So, however you approach this, in today's episode, I'm going to provide some tips and really the best practice guide that I use in my LinkedIn marketing mentoring program for marketing and content rituals, which effectively are your content marketing rituals on LinkedIn. Before we dive in, let's look at some of the assumptions I've made about your content marketing plan for LinkedIn. So the first one is that you have a documented strategy for either your organization's LinkedIn presence, so that could be the LinkedIn company page, as well as your leaders' profiles, or if you're a coach or consultant, or you're driving your LinkedIn content marketing via your profile, then it could be a LinkedIn profile strategy. Now, I want you to have that plan in place, and I want it to be documented, written down somewhere. And within that, I want to know who your ideal clients are, what your focus is, what your content pillars are. And ideally, I'd like you to have a master content plan. So that's an idea of how regularly you're going to be posting, on which days, and what type of content you will be posting across the month. And in an even more ideal world, I'd also like to know what your cornerstone content marketing elements are. So, an example of that might be you publish a LinkedIn newsletter from your company page once a month, the third Tuesday of each month. If you don't have some of the elements I've just described to you, there is absolutely no judgment here. And it's a ideal world scenario and something to work towards. The reality is you might not have the capacity, you might not have the headspace, you might not have the resource, or you just haven't done that thinking yet. So that's fine. You can still get tips from today. Do know that taking the time to document your plan is really at the heart of effective content marketing, whether that be on LinkedIn or other platforms, because it takes that pressure off you every week. What am I going to post this week? It gives you an idea of where you're heading. It ensures that you have a really good content mix. You're not just posting promotional content all the time. And if you have stakeholders, it makes sure they can also contribute or at least have a say in the way your content marketing plan looks. Now, if you need help documenting your plan, go to Think Bespoke's website, and on our resources, we do have available a strategic content marketing framework for LinkedIn that you can purchase and download. So I will put those details in the show notes. In terms of getting yourself set up with content marketing rituals on LinkedIn and reaping the rewards or the benefits of having more headspace, being clearer about where you're heading, there's three parts. So the first one is making sure you have a plan in place. The second is really looking at your marketing rituals checklist. And the third is looking at your content rituals checklist. And the three of these are the things that will give you quite a lot of benefits in terms of time and headspace when you develop them for your own LinkedIn content marketing efforts. So let's look at this first element, which is really the main benefit of the content marketing rituals, and that's knowing that you have this base plan that you've developed. There is a plan in place, and that is effectively your roadmap for ensuring consistency, that it's aligned to your content marketing goals for LinkedIn, and you've got all stakeholders in your organization agreed to this. So, with this idea of having the plan in place, these are the 4 or 5 elements that I recommend you consider. The first one is you have a documented strategy for your LinkedIn profile and or company page. The second one is, which I've mentioned earlier, you have a master content plan in place. Now, I think Bespoke, we use monthly and annual content planners. I'm a little bit of a fan of printing them out and writing it out before you document your master content plan into an Excel spreadsheet. The reason for that is it gets you away from your devices and brainstorming in a group setting or on your own or in a place where you are more creative than necessarily looking at a screen. The next element of having a plan in place is that you've decided your cornerstone content. So I used the example before that it might be a LinkedIn newsletter, maybe it's a PDF document, maybe it's a LinkedIn live event, maybe it's an audio event. What is the core thing that people can expect from you each month from your profile or your page? You might choose to run a poll, you might choose to feature a team member, and the reason why I recommend this is if you choose to theme your months, which may or may not be relevant depending on your content pillars, your cornerstone content can in many ways be the anchor for your content marketing rituals. So please allow me to explain. Let's say you have an EDM or an email marketing that you send out regularly. You could then publish a version of that as your LinkedIn newsletter, and the things that you feature within that could then form part of your content plan across the month, separate from your LinkedIn newsletter. Now, this may have some application for your business, it may be completely irrelevant, and you may need to be relying more on video content, events, and registrations and signups to things beyond LinkedIn. The other thing that you need to think about in regard to making sure your plan is in place is that your marketing and content roles and timelines have been communicated and agreed within your organization or with your agency if you're using an agency or with other team members. So if you're relying on salespeople within your organization or your CEO or leaders of your organization to supply you with content across the month, then you need to make sure they've agreed to that and that you've agreed to those timelines. And what I've seen a few teams do is embed uh, an agenda item in their regular team meetings to make sure they're getting that accountability. They're having that conversation with the stakeholders that they're relying on to help them build their marketing and content rituals on LinkedIn across whatever their cycle might be. And then finally, in terms of having your plan in place, it's about considering all of the content marketing features available to you on LinkedIn, whether that be your profile and company page, and making a decision about the core ones that you're going to use in that particular cycle. Now, the reason why I mention this is LinkedIn on a regular basis releases new features. And so while it's very exciting to go after shiny things, I want you to build that into your planning. So make sure that if you're going to try new features, you build it into each cycle. And if 2 features get rolled out in the same time period, that you really just focus on one during a cycle and then move to the next cycle, which might be 2 weeks, it might be 4 weeks, to trial the next one. So you're not trying to do too much and you're not compromising what is effectively your documented base plan. So I'm very keen on test and measuring new features, but I don't want you to do everything all at once because that's going to become overwhelming and you're going to undermine your base content plan that's documented and agreed with all stakeholders. The next element is really looking at your marketing rituals checklist. So this applies to this idea of reviewing specific content features and having chosen them for the current content cycle. So yes, it's related to the last point in terms of having your plan in place, but you have agreed what is the specific content marketing feature I will be using during this cycle. Now, it might be the same one you've used every month. It could be the LinkedIn newsletter, it could be LinkedIn Live, it could be a PDF document, it could be photos of a team event, it could be an audio event. There are many options you can choose from. The key thing is in your marketing rituals checklist that you've chosen the specific content feature. The next point is for you to understand the difference between curated, owned, and promotional content. Now, I talk about this in great detail when I develop a content marketing or a strategic content marketing framework for clients. And the main point for you to understand about this is you can't just post promotional content about why people should be your client or shop with you or use your services. You should also be reposting content created by other complementary organizations or regulatory bodies within your sector or your industry that is sharing informative information that you can then curate and comment on. There are lots of examples of owned content. So that's content that comes from your website. It could be your blog, it could be a podcast, it could be a LinkedIn article, and it also could be a LinkedIn newsletter as examples. And promotional content is that more overt call to action content. So, in your marketing rituals checklist, do make sure you have a mix of curated, owned, and promotional content. And I've got some pretty firm views on what the ratio should look like. And there are also some commentators that will talk about this idea of top of the funnel content when people are considering your service, middle of the funnel content when people have sort of signed up, more engaged, started following you, and that bottom of the funnel content where you've got that captive audience that are nearly at that point of saying, yes, I want to engage your services. And that's when you have that stronger call to action or potentially special offers. So, the next thing to consider is that you have a mix of content types across these categories. So, I've talked about articles, images, videos, PDF, text, live, etc. So, it doesn't mean that you're choosing all of them, it just means that you are conscious of which ones fall into either the curated, owned, and promotional content categories, and that you're not too heavy on the promotional content. And then the final point around your marketing rituals checklist is that you've reviewed and decided on whether you'll use a third party scheduling tool or not. So that could be Buffer. There are lots of different options available, or you could be scheduling within LinkedIn. This might seem really obvious to some of you. However, I quite regularly come across people who manage their organization's LinkedIn presence and they are posting live each week. So they're going and posting from LinkedIn in the moment versus using LinkedIn scheduling tool within LinkedIn from the company page, experience, or third party scheduling tools. So please, if you are yet to invest in a third party scheduling tool, like Buffer as an example, or you are yet to leverage the LinkedIn inbuilt scheduling, please make sure you take a look at that. That is one of the key benefits of having content marketing rituals. And depending on how you curate content and get content ideas, if you're on the go a lot and you're not necessarily at your desk for some of the week and you're taking photos of team or client events, you can have these third party tools like Buffer on your phone and upload to draft. So when you get back to your desk, you are saving yourself time. And depending on the account, type of account that you have, or how much you pay for these, you can tag particular uh, types of content and you can develop campaigns within these third party scheduling tools. So, really big time savers. There's a benefit of having the ritual of using third party scheduling tools. Okay, so we're in this third element now, but before we dive in, I want to regroup. So, the first element was having your plan in place. The second element was what I called marketing rituals checklist. So it's really where the creating is going on, which is why I've given it the name marketing. And the third one is what I'm calling content rituals checklist because it's more about the admin, the final piece, the really making sure that you've got what you need to complete your LinkedIn content marketing cycle. This is a key part of your rituals that bring it all together and potentially save you a lot of time. So let's go through them. The first thing to think about is that your curation, so how you're finding interesting articles or videos or images or regulatory updates, your creation, so what you've created in that second element, and your posting roles are in place. So let me say that again. Your curation, creation, and posting roles are in place. Because if you've been really focused in that second step of creating everything, but you don't have someone responsible for the oversight and the scheduling and to making sure it goes in the plan, then you are going to create a few headaches for yourself. So make sure that you're clear about who does what. The next point is that your content plan posting schedule is documented. Now, I mentioned third party scheduling tools like Buffer. You can preset the days and times that you are going to post. This is such a handy tool. But if you know your core days when you've got pre scheduled content, then when something comes up that's breaking news and you really need to be sharing something, you know when you've got already scheduled content in place. The next one is that your draft content plan has been written or created. Sounds obvious, but if you want to meet your deadlines, if you want to have rituals that everyone starts to get used to the rhythm of when you're going to be asking them for particular content across the month, then it's really important that your content plan has actually been created and everyone who is saying they're going to create content for you is lining up and helping you with that. Because the reality is, this is a big part of a content marketer's role. If you have other people producing content for you, there's a little bit of chasing involved. The next point is that stakeholders have reviewed and approved the content plan. Now, we find that for some people who are incredibly busy, that have taken on the responsibility of being the last point of approval, can slow down the whole process. Now, I'm sure if you are responsible for your organization's LinkedIn presence, you can, and you have to have sign off or approval within a PR, comms, or marketing environment, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So please make sure you factor this into the way you plan your content marketing, and that these content rituals really do factor in a couple of maybe 3 days up to a week of that chase of making sure that they have reviewed and approved the content plan. The next point in your content rituals is making sure that all content that can be pre scheduled has been. So, this is the key benefit of having a strategic content marketing framework, a master content plan, an idea of on what day, what sort of content across each cycle you will be posting. Of course, it's going to change over time. Of course, in the light of new information and looking at your analytics or a particular season in your organization's life cycle, these will change. But there are elements of a content plan that can be pre-scheduled, and that is a huge benefit if you have a documented plan, you've got the approval process, you've got high performing posts that you've run before, that you've got saved in Buffer or whatever third party scheduling tool that you use, or even in an Excel spreadsheet or an Airtable, whatever you're using in your Google Drive, in your Google Sheets, whatever is your particular method of tracking information, you can pre-schedule, which can save you heaps of time. Because if you're going to do a type of promotional post each month, You could be locking and loading these 3 to 6 months in advance. Exciting, isn't it? And then the final point on your content rituals checklist is that you have the community management role and protocols have been documented. So, who is managing responses to comments on the LinkedIn page? Who is going in and responding to reposts and thanking that person for reposting? Who is going in and checking LinkedIn messages on your company page? So there's lots of things for you to consider because you've done all this hard work and you want to make sure that when there's comments and reactions and potential leads coming into your content marketing, your efforts that you've done over each cycle, that you're capturing those and that you've got people responsible for that community management element and that those protocols have been agreed to and documented. So lots to think about in regard to what I would call broadly my best practice guide to content marketing rituals. And really, what I've tried to do today is give you a sense of the benefits of having these rituals in place. I understand that you have stakeholders, I understand that you don't operate in an ideal world. And what I'm sharing with you today is an idea of some elements. Hopefully, you've picked up at least 2 or 3 tips that you can fold into your content marketing efforts over the next little while. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. If you'd like to learn more about how to leverage LinkedIn, I'd love to be your guide. Sign up to my e-insights, my monthly newsletter that's packed with LinkedIn tips, thought starters, and exclusive subscriber offers. If you're just starting out on your LinkedIn journey, I'm so glad you've found me, and I recommend you check out my LinkedIn Profile Essentials online course. If you want to be the go-to for your organization's LinkedIn presence, I recommend you check out my LinkedIn Marketing Mentoring Program.